And let's see how things are going. And it seems like everything's fine. Let me see how things are here. On this side, it seems like everything's all right. And let's see how things are going, shall we? In 2 minutes, we'll start our live stream today. For real, today's live stream. I think it will be one of the most political live streams I've ever done. Addressing this political aspect, politics is something that sometimes people let go and let politics dictate what happens. But knowing a little about politics is very important. Today, we're going to try to look at that. Just a minute to get started. We'll begin our live stream shortly. It'll be quick. It's going to be, let's say, quite political on a personal level too, right? I always work with politics on an individual level as well. The individual is politics itself. And today I'm going to have a new word, which is Jiwasa. Jiwasa is a cool word. We're going to talk about an Amerindian people, but we're going to try, for those who want to know more, look, this is in southern Chile. Collective is a word that means singular collective, and we're going to use it today. As always, I use those words, right? Precisely to change our mindset, to move away from colonialism. In just a minute, we'll be starting our live stream today. Okay, it's 6 p.m. We're in Aventura. Today is November 26, 2025. Today's live stream is called Jiwasa, Jiwasa in an inclusive democratic state. Jiwasa is a Native American term that means a singular collective, I, you, instead of having we over there, which was plural, the plural pronoun. Jivasa is everyone, all of us, but in the singular. It's you and me together, us together, a singular collective. And we're going to take this term and use it today in this inclusive democratic state, which is a state I would call a divasa. So the term is merindio, a term coined by the Portuguese word merindio, meaning indigenous or indigenous. And it's important for us to use these words so we can break free from this dull, colonial, and stuck cognitive process in our heads. In one of the previous live streams, I showed you, or rather I didn't show you, that when you learn a new concept, a new word, the brain waves, which are in sync, lose synchronicity, and the brain readjusts itself in response to the new word. When you learn a new word, a new concept, the brain readjusts itself, it assembles itself differently because of the semantics, because of the content of that word. And today we're going to use the word diva. Diva, we're going to use this word, which is a collective noun. Okay? For example, if we're in a musical quartet and suddenly the quartet starts playing in perfect synchronicity, then it's a divassal. For example, synchronized swimming or a football team, at some point the team is so perfectly in sync, then it's a divassal. Everyone's in sync. Or in the complex systems I mentioned, that whole bunch of intricate movements, right? Like from Vasa, and look at what's important in the flock, okay? The flock's flying, like I'm looking at you here. Sometimes in the flock, when the flock is flying, this seems to be the leader. When it turns this way, the leader is already someone else. Leadership in these Vasa processes isn't a fixed leader all the time. Leadership changes naturally depending on the direction the flock is going. So there isn't that big boss. The boss is just pretend. This is an important Amerindian concept for us and for us to start adopting in our lives. Look, freedom is real. and the boss is fake. Today in our European colonial system, the bosses are real, freedom is fake. So we have to get out of this European colonialism and change. And that's our proposal with today's live stream and with the blog. I sent you the links where things are explained in more detail. So what do we need to get into your head, into everyone's head? Look, if we take science with evidence and adopt a decolonial policy, and if we take the seeds of our ancestors' ideas to get out of this great colonial place, that's a lot of content, a lot of words, and sometimes you might get a little lost in the vocabulary, but it's important for you to know the following. There's one thing. In evolutionary computing, they call this the local optimum, where the system attempts to solve problems and remains within a certain optimal solution space. Small changes occur, and the problem shifts only slightly before returning to the same point. It remains stable, staying within a local optimum. They realize that simply using original ideas, concepts, or seeds can remove the local optimum and create an optimal change. In fact, it's improved and doesn't become redundant in the local theme. All those European concepts and European philosophers, that whole load of European ideas and words crammed into our heads, put it aside. It makes us have great places, but we can't see solutions in society. My proposal is that we take science with evidence, that which is truly true, factual, replicable, and seek ancestral knowledge, and that's cool. Look, Jiwasa is the name of a collective. Jiwasa is, let's suppose, that flock of a school of birds or people. A gathering of people, an entire population moving. Jiwasa. Okay, I'm going to use that term. Obviously, Jiwasa can be applied in other ways, but I'm going to apply it this way. So you have this collective. The collective is moving from one side to the other. Whoever has the laws and norms of collectives gives it a name. In fact, it would be a name. But our ancestors, the ancestral knowledge that we have from 5, 10, 20,000 years ago, which I tell you about the Umbus who came from southern Brazil, we also have other shamanic peoples, the peoples. Knowledge of these coexistences in this territory dates back 5, 10, 20,000 years. Okay, the European arrives here, takes this knowledge, and says, look, folklore isn't folklore. And then the European comes along and imposes a whole bunch of concepts and words. It's a graveyard of words which leaves you stuck in fixed ideal places. You become colonized by European ideas. Jackson, what's this? Colonized? I don't understand anything. Look, all the concepts I'm talking about with you, and one of the main concepts I emphasize a lot is belonging. And belonging in this collective is the information that reaches us. Okay, the information that reaches us through social networks, through the media, through communication, is information that is controlled by the 0-1. 0-1 refers to the 1% of the richest Americans. In Brazil, on the planet, also in Brazil, the richest 1% in Brazil controls the means of information. The richest 1% in Brazil has political avatars. They have ministers, they have lawyers, they have a president, they have ministers. The 0.1% has a lot. The 0.1% controls the information system and has political avatars and market positioning. The 0.1% lives off the Brazilian state, and conveys the idea, communicates to all of us that the state is a great monster that only wants to bite. And the state is a huge monster that only wants to bite the population, while the 0.1% lives off the state. So these are concepts that come from this European colonization. We have to get rid of that. That's where the idea of leaking comes from. And what does leaking do? Look, I am the state. And if you and I are the state, where is our income state? Why does all this money go only to the 0.1% question mark? They have tax exemptions. They earn great fortunes with very low taxes. It's madness. The interest that goes into those 0.1% reaches trillions annually, so it's a very large thing for those 0.1%. And they control our entire minds, our ideas through European colonialism, through those concepts, that graveyard of European words and concepts, graveyard of words and concepts. So what do we propose? To seek science with evidence, to forget the European lies. There are many lies, and to see what really replicates. Look, one thing is your faith. Even so, I explained a lot about faith to you. And suddenly, it's time to talk again. Faith, it's a process that I say is like an extended Yahami. Faith is a process that unfolds. Faith grows. It's a brain formation. The baby starts by imitating. From imitation, habits are created. From habits, belief is created. From belief, faith is created. So they are things, they are faith. So I imitated walking. Now I have the habit of walking. Now I believe I know how to walk. Now I have faith that I know how to walk, so I don't need to think anymore when I walk. I can walk and talk to someone. I have faith when I walk. But faith evolves a little further. It can evolve into blind faith or high performance. In blind faith, that's how you walk and never improve. That's how I learned. That's how I lived. That's how I'm going to be. That's how I am, and that's how I want to be. Blind faith, high performance. Wow, I can improve my steps. From time to time, I do metacognition. I think about my faith and I improve the performance of my faith in my walking or cycling or doing something, singing, talking, praising in your religiosity. It doesn't matter. Did you notice faith is a brain formation? Where does it come from? Imitation, habit, belief, faith. Another step. Blind faith, or better yet, I should choose between two, either blind faith or performance. The system of political ideologies, blind faith, because then in blind faith you no longer look at evidence and science with evidence. You simply believe the pastor, the leader, or an idea you had. But what if it's high performance? Science with evidence. Test, change a little, adjust the movement, adjust the ideas, adjust your motor skills, adjust your cognitive skills, improve with science and evidence. Then you have high performance. That's the way. So what do we have? These collectives of ours, which we learned a long time ago from our ancestry, our knowledge. These collectives already knew, even Carnival itself. You can notice that in Carnival, King Momo is fake. The freedom in Carnival is the real one. And that gives us a very important concept. Our bosses, our politicians, our leaders are fake. The freedom that is real, that should be. The Europeans invert that. And it gives a concept, the concepts of cemeteries, the dead concepts, the concepts of the old worlds. And then he comes and imposes the new world, which is our world, with these concepts of ours, with more than 20,000 years of working in collectives, and he imposes something that is wrong. He imposes something he doesn't understand. He imposes that the leader is the truth and freedom must be restricted to the leader. No, hold on, the leader is a sham. Freedom is the reality. And that's how we see it in Carnival, and we always repeat it. And it's important that we recover this knowledge from the Amerindians, to recover this consciousness and this ancestral knowledge and mix it into our politics today, in the present, in Congress, in the chamber. City councilors, state and federal representatives, senators, that's who we're talking about. City councilors, representatives, and senators. There are four state and federal representatives. We are speaking to these individuals who make laws, draft laws. These individuals that a large majority are avatars of 01, referring to Bolsonaro. They are placed there by 01, the richest ones, and they only work for 01. And in the laws, there are always those loopholes in the middle of a law to facilitate a transaction in the bank, money laundering, always to circulate money in a way that only helps 01, that the population is always chasing after a state that wants to collect taxes. Of course, it's the state, that's how it is. Yes, but the state has turned its back on the population, because the state is still within these European ideas, this graveyard of European concepts, of European colonization. But the 1888 Constitution freed us in writing in terms of norms. But our politicians have European colonial concepts. Basically, our politicians are defending the interests of whoever put them there. They are committed to the number one who put them there. So that's the break we want to make today, to make you stand out and for you to enter into your own concepts and start to form a new culture, a new idea of truth, a new idea of what democracy is. Democracy is the people. Human power belongs to the people. Who are the people? Vasana's people. Us together, the I that is the collective, a plural, a singular plural. We do it. Do you understand? I mean, us together making the state, being the state. At this moment, the state isn't seeing it that way. It wants, the state is there looking at the taxes and sees taxes and so on. Regarding these taxes, and also who does he end up paying interest to? To 0101, and 01 are richer and we end up paying interest to them. But in the Brazilian state, the central bank can create retail CBDCs. CBDC, central bank digital court. It's done. You press the button and it's done. The proper use of this causes the population to start rising up and empowering the citizen. Then the citizen begins to have a significant advantage, and we are talking now about a metabolic process. Money, the concept of economics, is a European concept. It's the concept that economics is outside of the human realm. This is a cemetery. This is untrue. Yes, but it's what works today. It's what rules today. It's what controls today. But who can change this? City councilors, state representatives, and senators. With what can they change it? Political will. Political will causes the economy itself to restructure itself in a part of economic metabolism. That society is moved by economic metabolism. And then I talk to you about Drex, citizen. Drex, the Brazilian digital currency, which is to control money from one bank to another and works more at the level of, it doesn't work at the level of Vallejo, it's more attacked, but if this is going to work next year and go into effect, our proposal is that Drex be a citizen-based Drex, where each individual will have a daily income, a daily income. It's not a handout from the state. The citizen is part of the state, owns the state. Without citizens, there is no state. Why does the state only feed the elite and keep punishing the population, hurting an entire population? We have to reverse the process. The citizen is part of the state, so we have to have an economic metabolism. This Drex entering the citizen. No money will circulate in the economy if it hasn't first passed through a citizen. A real citizen, not a corporate entity, a real citizen. How does money circulate on a planet that is for humans and is circulating through corporate entities, stock market amounts of money and money laundering? No, money must be created in the citizen. And that's where metabolism and these concepts I've shared with you come in. The ideal location, I think you understood a little bit, but I'll repeat it again. If you have solutions, a system of solutions trying to solve problems, you sometimes get fixated on one solution and it stagnates. Remember that storm in a teacup analogy for generating new ideas? That's something we used to use and is still used a lot today. A group of people, everyone talking about a storm in a teacup. That crazy thing about it's not exactly the term storm in a teacup. By releasing all the ideas, the turbulence allows new ideas to emerge. These ideas interact with each other and consolidate into solutions. When we talk about this optimal place in evolutionary computing, these solutions become fixed in certain spaces and become optimal. And then you can't change them. They get stuck there. And you make small changes, small adjustments, and nothing changes. Today, to truly help adjust something in the economy, we have to change, introduce new concepts. Because if we keep the adjustments small, the systems adapt and don't allow it. You create a new law to help with something. And in the middle of that new law, something else gets added, and it won't solve the problem. We have to change the concept. The concepts we offer are concepts of collectives. For example, we have the concept of the perception of being, the perception of being, I. If you come from colonial Europe, the self is one thing. If you're from the northern hemisphere, someone from the northern hemisphere of Europe, that self has a noble spirit. If you're from the southern hemisphere, it doesn't even have a soul. These concepts came from other European concepts. Look, Republic. The Republic has the citizen. The citizen is the white rich man. The woman is not, the child is not, the slave is not, the immigrant is not. So the good man for us becomes the rich man. Why? Because it's a garbage concept that came from Europe. If these garbage concepts, these graveyards of European words remain in your head, you'll always think that that rich man, that the financial system and all that money flowing freely everywhere will trickle down and improve the economy. And that's a lie. That's a lie. As I said in the other live stream, do you see my hand here? This is my hand. It's right here. Now, the invisible hand of the market only helps number one. The invisible hand of the market is a lie. It's a dead European concept. But it controls our economy. I don't know how. Because within our ministers, within our own state officials, this colonial mentality persists. These ideas have emerged. This Jiwasa that I'm talking about to you is your concept. We are one, and we have to change, and we have to seek this science with evidence and remove this decolonial policy, remove the policy of colonization and decolonize it, make it our own policy. We have the fantastic 1988 Constitution, metabolic. It talks about ecology, it talks about well being, it talks about the feeling that I always talk about to you. The mind in concept. Today, neuroscience concepts show that the mind is a mixture of interoception and proprioception, deep feelings that you have in your gut that go to the brain, and this nerve communication that comes from your periphery, from body movement, and goes to the brain. This processing in the human mind, this processing in proprioception, I extend, I call it after everything you see outside, how you position yourself in relation to what you perceive and see. It's your after effects. This positioning, this after effects makes you respect ecological practices, respect the flow of vegetation, reduce waste, and then we need the state. It's no use saying, look, I'm doing my part. My part has to be done by the state. So my part has to be done by who I'm going to vote for, or if I'm going to run for office, or we're all in this together. I'm not talking to these 30 people, these 20 people. Folks, we have to regulate this waste issue. Yes, but we can't do it alone. Municipalities need to come together. The state, the federal government. Neighborhoods, municipalities, state, federal government, zero waste. We won't be able to do it one by one alone. It's these communities, it's the holy cause. These are the concepts, and then waste begins to disappear from society. When you were an egg inside your mother's womb, you had a lot of substances that entered you, substances that were disposable, and this substance was reused inside the mother's womb, and it was used to make another substance. So there is a whole cycle of flow of substances that pass through you and come out. It's the same in nature, in a forest, in a biome, the Atlantic forest, for example. Something is rotting and it already serves as food for something else and it keeps transforming. We would call this a cyclical economy. This plastic that came here has already been melted down and transformed into plastic again. This can is reabsorbed and becomes another can. So we have a cyclical economy. There is no more waste. This takes time. The state is not a being that wants to bite you. That being that wants to bite you is the discourse that the president, known as 01, has put forth through his communication processes, saying that it is the state. The state has to be smaller, the state has to be smaller, and the state has to be smaller, but they only live off the state, and we get lost in that. But they control the internet, they control the means of communication. We receive this information, and upon receiving the same information, we have a sense of belonging based on information that may be fake news, that may be untrue. This could be a European, almost graveyard-like concept that comes here trying to force things that don't apply to our culture. Our culture is different. It's not a European culture, it's something else. And this other thing has a different way of being. And I say that this other thing is based on and very clearly shown in the 1988 Constitution. Of course, the Constitution is open, because the Constitution depends on us going there and doing and changing and doing things without defending the 01 and without defending the divasario, a derogatory term for the president. From our collective, from this collective that will involve every Brazilian citizen. And then we have the patriot, someone who truly wants what's best for their country, not just the American country. Some people say that a patriot has an American flag or an Israeli flag. No, a real patriot. A patriot who doesn't even need to show a flag. A patriot who wants what's best for the state, the territory, wants zero waste, wants things improved, wants better air, wants better water. That's what being a patriot is. The homeland, the state, this land where you are. Your body, improving your body, helping your own body. That's being a patriot. So look, these concepts making this metabolic aspect work within you. And this concept comes in and you start to look, and I'm going to take the ancestral concept again now. Look, in terms of concepts, the great difficulty that the Portuguese had with our indigenous people was this, because our indigenous peoples, if you start to order them around, I don't know now, okay, but before it was no use ordering, it doesn't work, he'll do it if he wants to. He has the freedom to do it or not. The boss is a sham, the boss is a protocol, the boss is there to help each individual move forward. The mayor is there to help each citizen move forward. The governor too, the president too. The individual is free to come and go, and their bosses are there to help make that happen. The Europeans did it the other way around. The bosses are free to come and go, and the citizen is trapped because they don't have the right to come and go. They don't even have money. All the money goes to the top, and the citizen is left struggling through salary, through something else. So our proposal reverses the process. Money doesn't originate in the citizen. It's the citizen who earns money daily. A simple proposal. It would be about 50 reais today. Daily reports, and that drives the economy. And Drex is tracked. You know where he came from, where he's going. Money laundering disappears or decreases significantly. The number 101 becomes a little more repressed. Of course, the number one, who are the richest, hate Drex. And every unpatriotic person will hate Drex and will speak ill of Drex because they will follow you. That's a lie, because Drex can facilitate the economic metabolism by passing through the human body, so that it is simply an energy that will circulate among us. And if the migrant arrives, The Drex immigrant, we also manage these relationships. I've already applied it. I talked to you in the previous video. If the immigrant comes, along with him comes the Drex of his country. But his country doesn't have the Drex. Yes, but commercial relations allow us, Brazil, to place the Drex in the country in his placement and gives value to the immigrant. And the immigrant enters and moves our economy, boosting the economy, making it more vibrant, more freedom, more life, more pulse. And we are in zone 2 of work, in flow, not in agony, in the desperation of searching. Salary, trying to find money to pay the rent, to pay for things, and interest and interest and interest, and 0-1 getting richer, richer, richer. Everyone's going broke in the country. The banks are at maximum profitability. And what's that all about, man? What kind of colonialism is this? And we end up submitting to the idea of who's winning, passing these concepts on to us in a completely subordinate way, benefiting only a few. 0-1, basically 0-1. They've reversed the process. We, the citizens together, do it, changing, structuring, being together with others. Jiwasa doesn't mean you with your family. It can be with your family. Jiwasa is you with the other who do something in common. While you are doing this thing in common, there is Jiwasa. When this common thing stopped being done, when this music stopped being played, the Jiwasa ended. Each one returns to their own way of being. But there is the structure to compose a single, to compose a collective, to help the state, to be the state, and thus rescue the Brazilian state from the hands of 0-1 who kidnapped this state. For a long time and lives off the state. And it controls the entire communication process with social networks and even newspapers and news programs, and keeps putting the idea in our heads that the state is against the citizen. How can the state be the citizen? Folks, I wanted to leave this one with you. Until next Wednesday.